you're talking about something that's really important, which is like the community support piece of it. Like we're not meant to hold our dreams by ourselves. And I think that it's very difficult to hold a container by yourself. That's why it's so helpful to have the Orange Theory people yelling at you or like someone else holding the container so you're not having to be doing the thing, struggling about doing the thing, and struggling with holding the container. Let someone else hold the container.
Hey, welcome to the Delusional Show. This is Michelle Coyle, and I'm here with my dear friend, Dr. Pavini Moray. Pavini, would you like to introduce yourself?
I sure would. I am Pavini, and I wrote a book in a month and got a major publishing deal.
I love this story so much. I was there for it. I got to watch it happen. I can tell you that this is 100% true, and it was really cool to see. And let's back up a little bit to kind of what led up to this, because you were a client of mine and we were working on your business, and I'll let you tell the story. What happened?
Sure. Well, I hit a wall with my business and I called you and I said, I can't do this anymore. And that was in the midst of the pandemic. And I didn't know what I was going to do and got inspired to take the learning from my business and everything I learned, everything I failed at, everything I won at, and translate it into the book that I wish I had had when I started the business. And that became the project of that month right after my business ended.
Well, and I want to back up a little bit, because normally when a client calls me, and as you can imagine, this happens frequently, right? Entrepreneurs get stressed out and clients call and they say, oh my God, I can't do it anymore, right? It's too much. And 99 out of 100 times when that happens, we go into it. Hey, what's going on? How are you feeling? And it turns out that they've got some kind of just fear stuff coming up or what, like they just need to kind of talk it through. And then they realize, oh, this is actually really what I want to do. And I just need to get kind of reoriented to my path and keep going. And, I just needed like a coaching conversation around it. But when you called me that day, I heard something different from you. And if you'll recall, like I didn't try to talk you into staying in business. I just heard it. It was clear. Like you said, it was total clarity. And what I heard was full alignment. And it was just, I'm done. And the only little inkling of anything you had clouding that was a little bit of guilt.
I had some shame.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it's like there's a sunk cost, right? You have gone into this thing, you've thrown your heart into it, you've built your dreams, you've, gotten other people on board with you, and then to just call it quits, right? It's hard and it's painful. And I had a lot of shame about it, but it was the shame that helped in my body that helped me realize, oh, this isn't a good fit. Yeah. And I think that's probably what you responded to that day.
Yeah. I was like, all right. And do you want to tell the people what you had been doing for 30 years prior to this moment?
Yeah. So I am a somatic coach and a educator and help people live better in their bodies and have really thriving, wonderful relationships. And so the company had come out of that private practice work into making something bigger and more accessible for others. And I think it's a great dream. And it just like that, it wasn't the moment during the pandemic was not the moment. Everybody was tired of being online. They were tired of Zoom stuff. It just wasn't the right moment for that to really land. But I have no regrets.
Well, you had been doing, therapy, right? And like very heavy stuff, stuff with trauma, stuff with sexual trauma, ancestral stuff. For a long time. And where the guilt or the shame that you expressed to me in that moment was like, these people need me, they need help. And I think I said back to you, like, you put decades in.
Yeah,
like,
you did.
Like you did it. Like no one can say you didn't help anybody. Right? And like, you're not under some obligation to do this for the rest of your life as a life sentence. Like nobody said, hey, you need to spend 70 years doing this. Like it's not good enough that you did 30. Right.
No, I think what's really cool about that is that was really liberatory when you said that, because what it freed me to do was recognize like, yeah, I have been in service to people for my whole career, either through educating or through coaching or therapy. And like the longing inside of me was to write, that there's always been this writer inside of me that I have been like, oh, that's not realistic. That's, nobody can just like be a writer. You have to go to writing school, all these things, right? And so in that moment where I didn't know what I was going to do, it just was like, okay, well, this is how I'm going to get through this. I'm going to write my way through this, and that's exactly what happened. And a lot of the content, from both my business, from becoming a boss, from having employees, and also from my client work, really wove in as the narratives that held that book together. And I really wanted the book's called How to Hold Power, How to Become a Somatic approach to becoming a leader people love and respect. And what I really wanted was for something like radical to come out of my business failure, right? Something that like would really be that resource for others stepping into leadership for the first time. And I think I accomplished it.
I have to take issue with you calling that a business failure. First of all, you decided to shut down. That's not a failure. In fact, if I recall, you were doing really well and actually making a lot of money, and your sales rate was like sky high. Like you had this impressive, like insanely impressive sales close rate. And it was actually on paper going really well. You just weren't there with it.
I wasn't there with it. Yeah, it was too much. It was too much stress, and it wasn't going in a direction that I felt personally good about. And I remember you saying to me like, "Oh, the reason that like this happened, that this thing didn't work out was because you weren't aligned with it." And I was like, "Oh, right. I wasn't aligned with it. I'm trying to do a thing that I'm not aligned with right now." And that was a really powerful moment of pivot also.
Well, and sometimes I'll say this is like, are you swimming upstream or are you kind of floating downstream, right? Like, what's that feeling? I take that from Abraham Hicks, right? Love Abraham Hicks, by the way. I always shout at Abraham Hicks anytime I get a chance. If you're into the woo, that's the gateway drug. But that feeling of being in alignment and being in flow is like, oh yeah, the current's just taking me. Like I'm just doing what I'm supposed to be doing versus am I just swimming up against it? If it starts to feel like that, obviously you are all going to have moments like that. But if you're spending, 80% of your time feeling like you're swimming up against a current, it's because we're not doing the thing that we're supposed to be doing, right?
Yeah. I don't feel like the word failure is actually like a happy word for me. It doesn't feel like a
Oh,
bad word. It feels like, oh yeah, like that wasn't like exactly the thing. That's not aligned. It doesn't fit right now. And so when I think about failure, it's like, oh, glad I got that out of the way so I could get to the thing that I really did want to be doing, which is writing. And so that's, I think, the how I'm holding it. Not like, oh, it failed, but just like, oh yeah, that didn't work out because I wasn't aligned. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. And so the way that this played out from my side was that you said, "Okay, I'm going like to the woods. I don't know
I
what's
did.
going to happen."
Which is always
It was like, "All right, I'm going to the woods. I'm gonna unplug from all technology. I'm gonna figure out what I want to do next, and like I'll call you when I get back or whatever." And then you pop back up a month later and go, "I wrote a book." It's like what?
4 hours. Yeah, I went to Belize, and, like, every moment of the trip where I wasn't in the water, I was writing. I had this fabulous balcony looking out over the Caribbean Sea and just took my computer and was just writing every day and, for hours, and I was following this format, right? I had a structure, I had a guide, I had some guidance from somebody, and it worked. Like, it really, really worked to have a structure that I could follow because I was like, when I first set that out, I was like, I'm going to write a book in a month. I was like, how is that even possible? How can that, it's not going to be a very good book. But just following a set structure, it really became a really good book. And then, of course, you're working with editing professionals and, at the publishers, and they were wonderful. And so um, it all worked out. And I feel really proud of that book and proud of that work. And I'm proud that I took something that was like hard and painful and then like alchemized it into something that is like a new iteration of my work. I was able to like really articulate what I had learned and make it into something of value for others. So I feel pretty proud about that.
It was like the coolest thing I've ever seen. I tell the story all the time. I'm like, you think you're at the end, and it's really like, life is pushing you off the cliff into a new beginning sometimes, right? I love that you did that whole thing, but then what's so impressive to me is that you got a deal with an actual publisher. Now, this is not
Yeah.
to knock anybody that's self-publishing. Obviously, lots of us do that. I'll probably be doing that sometime next year. Spoiler alert. But most of us that sit down to write a book and we self-publish it, we sell it a little bit, but it's very difficult to get an actual publishing deal. So tell us about
Yeah.
that process for anybody.
That felt like a miracle. So There's this guy, Hal Elrod, and he has a kind of an approach called the miracle morning. And then he has this other piece of that work called the miracle equation. His story is pretty magical, of how he beat cancer. He survived like near death experiences multiple times. And anyway, he's like created this approach where you can create miracles in your own life, through articulating what you want and then figuring out a plan for how to getting it. And the approach is you're unrelenting in your determination to get this thing, and that's the whole gist of it. And so through that, I decided that I would in a month, get a book contract also. And so I, you know, but I think it's hard, sometimes when we're facing those we all know that it's hard to get a book contract, right? And so I went to my library and I was wandering up and down the stacks and I was looking at all of the different books, fiction and nonfiction and self-help. And I was thinking, all these people got book deals.
Hmm.
All of these people got book deals. And some of these books like aren't even very good. You know? And like, but they all got a book deal. And like, why would they all be able to get a book deal and I couldn't get a book deal?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay, I'm going to get a book deal. That's what's going to happen. And it was important to me, for this book. I had self-published another book, and it was important, I think, to just really land in that like traditional validation of a traditional publisher.
Mhm.
And so yeah, I went to the section of the library on how to write a book proposal and took out a book on how to write a book proposal, brought it home, read it thoroughly, replicated how to do that, spent a week writing a book proposal, send it off, like research publishers, send it off to my top 6, I think. And just a few weeks later, got this like very exciting email. I screamed when I got it, right? I'm like, we're interested in talking to you about your book. And I was like, well, it was my number one publisher. It was the publisher I'd written the book proposal for. And it was a miracle. It really felt like a miracle. I had put in the time. I had been steadfast in my effort. I had believed in myself. And I got lucky too. Like it's all of that. I didn't have connections. I didn't have anybody who was putting in a good word for me. And so it does happen, right? And then, I worked with North Atlantic Books and they were just fantastic. They were so professional and warm and kind and like collaborative and really, really amazing. And then it was published by Penguin Random House, or distributed by Penguin Random House. So it was a pretty special experience. And then they published my next book. So it was like the relationship built on that, and so now I feel pretty like I'm a writer. I can say
Yeah.
that with some
Yeah.
authority.
Literally a professional author in every sense of the word. It's interesting that you brought up that. I looked at all the other books and I thought all these people got a deal. I think about that a lot just as I'm walking down the street thinking every single one of these things is a business that somebody started. This was somebody's dream. Sometimes I get a little bit like choked up thinking about that. But just look, if you are out there thinking, "Oh, I can't possibly bring my dream to life," just look around you and like every single thing that you can possibly see was in somebody's imagination first, and then they brought it to life. And you start to realize, oh no, that's such an ordinary thing in so many ways. Like that's what we're here to do is to imagine and then create. And we're all just creators. That theme of if everybody else did it, why can't I do it has come up several times as I've been interviewing
All
people.
that.
Yeah, it's one of the catalysts a lot of times for people to really realize that they can do something too because they're just as good as anybody else that ever did that. So I
Right.
love that you brought that up. You also mentioned the time frame, like setting your mind to the goal and then collapsing the time frame, which I love. So I've just become recently aware of Dr. Benjamin Hardy and his work, and he wrote a book called The Science of Scaling. And his premise, and then this book like just came out a couple of months ago, it's brand new. But the premise is you need to have a huge goal, like take your goal and 10x it, and then you need to have a collapsed time frame. And if you have a huge goal and a collapsed time frame, what it's going to do is force you to eliminate everything else in your life, eliminate all distractions. I take some umbrage with this a little bit as somebody who's like a single mom, and I'm like, well, I can't eliminate all my distractions right now. Maybe this is good for, people that are in a different life stage or whatever. But that's basically what you did. So you went to Belize by yourself, right?
My daughter was with me.
Okay. Okay. So you were doing this and parenting at the same time. How old was your daughter at the time?
She was 17, I think.
Okay.
And so she was like sleeping the sleep of the teenage, right? In the mornings, and so I could write. Yeah. It
Yeah.
reminds me of 12-Week Year, actually,
Mhm.
that book and that idea, right? Of like, how do we accomplish more in less time? And I think one of the things that I found that's really important is that I'm not a writer who can write every single day, you know? Like I work really well in small time containers, right? So if I set a goal for myself, I wrote another book and it was 6 weeks for that book.
Mm.
Um, and if I set that goal, I will go in deep and then I will come out and relax, you know? So it's not, I don't have to, because a lot of writers really struggle with like the consistency, right? And so for me, that has been the technology that I've been able to use, I guess, is like collapsing the time frame. So like being like, okay, I'm going to do this in a container and then I'm going to be done with it. And it's not going to like drag on and on and on.
Yeah, like a sprint.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So you said you used a framework. Can you give us a little bit of a structure? So like, because to me, I'm thinking writing a whole book, and how many, like about approximately how many pages was that book?
It's like 180.
Okay, okay. So you're
Yeah.
not talking about like a George R. R. Martin like 700 page epic here, but still 180 pages in a month is a lot. And so, did you sit down and say, okay, I need to have this many per week, or like how did you break that down further?
Yeah. So the same person who turned me on to the miracle equation also turns me on to this guy, Joshua Sprigg. And he has this 30-day email program. It's like $100. It's very simple. Every day you get an email and you do the thing in the email. And it was really that framework. And it wasn't, I didn't have to think about pages or word count. I mean, different genres of books have different page counts that they publishers traditionally want, but like I was just following this framework of this template, like, okay, figure out what's the hook of the book, figure out who you're writing it for and what problem you're solving. And like he has a really cool thing, what mess in your life can you transform into a process that other people can use to not have to deal with that mess, right?
Mhm,
And so it's really designed for writing nonfiction. Fiction,
mhm.
forget about fiction. Fiction takes forever. But when you're writing nonfiction, you can get really linear and specific and break it down. And then you're just, it's just a matter of doing the things every single day for a month. And I mean, I think 30 days is a pretty reasonable container. Most people, if they have support around them, can really commit to 30 days, if they have the right, yeah, support, I think is really important here. Um, and obviously I was able to build that for myself. I had that, right? And so not to knock anybody who couldn't do it in 30 days, right? Like
Yeah.
it worked for me.
It's different to do something with a 17-year-old kid with you versus like a 3-year-old or something like that, right? So, yeah, obviously, different support, different life stages, etcetera. This 30-day thing is still so fascinating to me because it's like, oh, day 1, who are you writing to? And day 2, what's the major premise of the book? And in my brain, it's just like there's a day that comes where it's like, day 6, write 8 chapters. Like, at some point, you had to be writing a lot really fast.
Yeah, but I mean, and you edit it in that time. It's
Wow.
not just writing it, you edit it. Like you come out with a manuscript. Like I came out with ready to go manuscript.
Yeah.
And this is like before, chat, right? So I didn't have AI assistance with it. Um, but yeah, I mean, it was never more than like 4 hours a day, 5 maybe. Like kind of towards the end when I was doing a lot of editing, it might have been a little bit more, but it was like I was like, oh, I'm so close, so
Yeah.
almost there, that I had a lot of like momentum and all these like positive experiences behind me that were kind of helping to push it forward, right? So it kind of starts out slowly and builds in momentum, which I think is a great approach, because it's like once you have that positive history, right, it's easier to keep going. You can see the finish line.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Have you ever done a challenge like that?
Not like that. No. Now you're making me want to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd be really interested to just get it. I like to be told what to do. Be it'd be fun to just get an email that says, "Do this." I mean, the only thing I can even kinda relate it to is, like, having a personal trainer or even I used to go to
Yeah.
Orange Theory where they just yell at you, like, they yell at the entire class of people over this headset, and they're just kind of barking orders at you, and that was so effective for me because it just felt like I could turn my brain off and just do whatever the coach
Right.
was saying,
Yeah.
and get a great workout, and then after an hour, you're like, "Oh, I worked out really hard in there," and probably way harder than I would have if I had just been by myself with the same equipment because there was somebody yelling at me and telling me what to do. And we
Yeah.
and we were doing it as a group. I think that's part of it too. So in your 30-day thing, were there other people also doing this 30-day challenge along with you?
Not the first time I did it. The first time I did it, it was just me. But the second time, a friend of mine did it with me,
Mhm.
and we had weekly check-ins, and we had this like goal, like, okay, if we do this in 6 weeks, then we're gonna get to like go on this manatee trip to Florida, and like we did it. We went on the trip, and it was amazing. It was
That's
so
awesome.
cool, right? To celebrate. But I think that that's really you're talking about something that's really important, which is like the community support piece of it. It's like we're not meant to hold our dreams by ourselves. And I think that it's very difficult to hold a container by yourself, right? That's why it's so helpful to have the orange theory people yelling at you or like someone else holding the container so you're not having to be doing the thing, struggling about doing the thing, and struggling with holding the container, right?
Yeah.
Let someone else hold the container.
Yeah. Well, and that's how I approach my work, right? Either some of it is in groups, right? You were in a mastermind group of mine for years called Impact
Yeah,
Grade.
several years.
Yeah. And we do it as a group and we'd okay, what are our goals this month? And everybody heard everybody say it and ask them on Friday, did they do the thing? Did they send the proposal or did they do the thing they were supposed to do? And there's that group accountability. But also even in my one-on-one work, I think the value that I'm bringing is I'm providing structure to people, right? Obviously there's some knowledge there, but Chat GPT could also do that, right? What I'm doing is saying, okay, what are we going to do this week? What are we going to do that week? Like, make sure you're showing up next week with this done, and here's your homework. And there's something so valuable to having somebody or a group of people just to be accountable to. I don't know. What's your thoughts on that?
I find it very, very valuable. And in fact, this week I got a case of books from my publisher. My books finally came, so I like posted, on social media, here's me with my book, and people from Mastery, several people from Mastery commented.
Oh,
Several people from Mastery read and comment on my Substack every week, right? One person's a paid follower. Like I feel like those are the kinds of relationships that allow people to reach really big dreams. Because like if I'm having a big dream and nobody's believing in me, right? So I would say it's yes, it's the technical know-how that you have, but it's also um, that like being held in a big dream feels really important to me, and that is a community function, right? If like,
mhm,
but it's specific, right? It's not just like any people, because like a lot of people have dreams but don't allow themselves the permission to follow them. Like right with me with my writing, for example. And so when you're in a community with people who are also following their dreams, like you're surrounding yourself with like-minded people who of course are going to lift you up. They're going to do everything in their power. I'm going to do everything in my power to lift them up, right?
mhm.
And it's an accountability, but it's also just like it feels like a lattice of support, that I think is really important. Yeah.
Well, it's so important because so many of us, when we are working on a big dream, have these outside and inside voices telling us we can't, we shouldn't, it's a bad idea, it's unsafe, right? We talk about this. This is a theme a lot on delusional, right? Sometimes it's parents or a spouse, sometimes it's, the inner voice saying, you need to do the safe thing. And we know that those voices are well intentioned, right? They're trying to keep us safe. They're trying to say, hey, don't fly too close to the sun, don't get burned, just go be an accountant or something. Get a paycheck and go make a budget and have a nice right. And the people who have done these delusional things that I'm talking to at some point had to kind of slay that dragon or go, you know what, no, sorry mom and dad, sorry husband wife, whatever, I'm gonna go do what's in my heart to do, or even like sorry self. I know you've had tons of support around you and you might not have necessarily had naysaying voices, but how do you bounce off of that? Hey, there's people trying to keep you safe, or you're even trying to keep yourself safe, and you
Yeah.
gotta get past that in order to do something crazy.
So I'm going to tell a story.
Please.
When I was 9, I had clarity that I wanted to be a writer, wanted to be a poet. And I told my dad, and he said, poets are a dime a dozen.
Mm,
And I was like, oh, you're a little kid, right? And so you're just like, oh, okay, I can't do that. Like, can't be a writer, can't be a poet. And in that process of like everything that we've already talked about, coming into my writing self and giving permission, one of the things that I did was go through my childhood poetry notebook, and I found this poem that I had written that I now have tattooed on my arm. I don't know if you can see it.
oh,
Um, about the first line is I'm a poet, right? And so I think that there is like having a big dream and like anchoring deeply in it. Those the hardest parts to combat are those internal parts of permission giving,
Mhm.
right? Like you could tell me, Pavini, go be a writer, and I couldn't do that, right? And so I had to be the one who could give myself permission.
Mhm.
And so how do we give ourselves permission for our big dreams, right? How do we get out of our own way? How do we claim, as soon as I found that, I was like, I'm going to wear that on my arm. I'm a poet, right?
Right.
Like, how do we claim our dreams and just get those parts that naysay that try to keep us safe to just like move aside for a minute. Like, could you just go sit on the porch for the next 6 months so I could do this dream, right? Because then you can get traction with the dream, but like until then it's very difficult to when that's always pressing in on you. It's external from others, but there's also that internal voice that can really um make us not sparkle. And like, what fun is that? Like, do you want to get to the end of your life and not have shown your brightest light? Like, I
Mhm.
don't. I want to give myself permission for everything that is alive and good and wholesome and life affirming to be uplifted. And so I think like finding ways to work with those parts that are naysaying. How do you do it? How do you, when you get in your own way, what do you do?
Well, I was just thinking this that I think what I move away from is more that feeling of regret for not trying, right? Like to me, that's the scary thing is that I would come to the end of my life and regret that I didn't try this or try that. I don't get as freaked out about failure or something not working. And I think that comes from being an entrepreneur for decades and teaching entrepreneurship and, just sitting in that, hey, failure is just feedback, right? Kind of
Yeah.
loop of we learn, we try. For better or for worse, would always rather try and get knocked down than not try and regret not trying when that chance has passed me by. So I think I've just lived my entire life as a risk taker. I may not be the best person to ask because there have been plenty of times in my life where I said, I don't care if you see the vision or not, including for this show, by the way. There were several people who told me that Delusional was not a great brand for a podcast. There were a bunch of people who told me it was, right? But I got lots of opinion. I'll go and I'll get all my data points. But I knew when I hit on this brand and this concept that this was good. I just know in my heart, and it's very aligned for me. I was thinking about my own story and all the crazy risks I've taken and what I've done to get where I am, and that a lot of people would call me delusional. They probably would still call me delusional if they knew what I was thinking about or working on for the future. And to me, it was just super resonant. And so when people came and said, oh, that's actually, and that's got a negative connotation, or a lot of people just mean that to be super crazy or what, I'm like, well, yeah, I'm reclaiming it. Some people are going to get it, some people aren't. It doesn't really matter because it resonates with me. And I know because it resonates with me, there's going to be at least some people that, the people this is for, it's going to
Right.
resonate with. And not everything that you do is going to be for everybody. In fact, nothing that you do is going to be for everybody. So I think if you stop, for me, it's like I'm not trying to please everybody. I'm trying to make something that helps some people. And I'm trying to make stuff that helps me, right? At the end of the day, this is art too.
I really like the idea of reclaiming it.
Mhm.
Because I think that I'm just thinking of some feedback I got once from my sister-in-law. She said, "Oh, Pavani is such a dreamer."
Mm.
I was like, "Shit, yeah, I'm a dreamer. Like, aren't you a dreamer?"
Yeah.
And to say like that's a negative thing, right? That
Mhm.
to have a crazy big vision and to want to have really big impact in the world is somehow, um, what is that? Like, that's just like our fear of disappointment, maybe. Like a lot of people struggle with being disappointed, and will do things to not face risk so they don't have to face disappointment, right? Like they will um, fail
Right.
so that they don't have to take a risk, right?
Right.
And like, well, that sounds so heartbreaking to me. I don't want to do that. And I don't want anybody to have to do that. I want all of us to feel like we can be delusional and take risks on our big dreams and yeah, feel really like fulfilled that we're doing that, even if it's not the outcome that we want. We tried, we
Mhm.
gave it our all. We threw in with something. We got behind something. We took a stand for something, right?
Yeah, and it's like as a parent, right? Like I've got kids watching me do this stuff.
True.
This is morbid, but I think about my funeral a lot, right? Like I think about like what do I want people to say about me? Like what do I want my kids to be telling their kids about me when I'm gone? And oh, I'm gonna get emotional. talking about this, but I would so much rather have them say, she did stuff, she tried stuff, she lived big, she lived out loud, she lived every second of her life to the fullest extent that she possibly could, rather than, she was always stay safe. Nothing wrong. Like, I think the world needs both kinds of people. I really do. Like,
Mix and gets.
yeah, I don't think everybody needs to be like a crazy risk taker. I don't think things would go super well. I think, all God's children got a place in the choir. It's just, this is my place in the choir, is to be a crazy and delusional, and to kind of now carry and hold the delusional torch for others, right? I was just thinking as we were talking, because obviously you have tons of formal schooling. I'm sure that there was some famous study done at some point that proved that people would rather stay comfortable in kind of a uncomfortable situation than take a risk. Was there a study like that? Do you?
I'm not aware of it, but it would not surprise me just based on my own, I know how hard it is to be uncomfortable, right?
Yeah.
And to like take a step into the unknown, take a step into the mystery is very uncomfortable. It provides an aliveness, right?
Mhm.
That is rarefied. I really like that feeling of like when I'm at that edge of my comfort level, like, whoo, whoo, I don't know how this is gonna go. I really
Yeah.
like that feeling. Sometimes, sometimes I just want to like, be chill and safe and be comfortable. But like, I don't want to live a life that is defined by my fear.
Yeah.
I want to live an expansive life that is um, towards my joy, towards my aliveness. And I wanted to say something about you that I was talking to Ari about this morning, my partner, uh, because I feel like in the presence of expansiveness,
Mm.
right? You are more expansive than I am. You have a higher risk tolerance than I do. And in your presence, like my capacity for risk taking grows,
Mm.
right? And I think some people, might have the opposite. They might like, whoa, that's a lot, too much risk, right?
Yeah.
But for me, it's like it feels such it's like a relief,
Mm.
right? To be like, oh yeah, in when I'm with Michelle, there's this sense of like her vision is vast and broad and wide, and it adds oomph to mine, and it gives me permission for my vision. And I saw that when I was in mastery with you of like that, like people, you have to have a certain risk tolerance to be an entrepreneur, of course,
Mhm.
but like people who, when they would get contracted and you would be like, well, yeah, but just think about like the ROI. If it goes well, like this is, right?
Yeah.
And they would do it and they would be like, okay, like they would be riding on your faith, right?
Yeah.
And then they would do it and then it would be successful. And I just think that's such a gift, Michelle. It's really a gift that you bring specifically to the world of empowering people to dream bigger. At least
You
you have
are
to.
gonna make me cry with
Yeah.
thank you so I mean, I'm so happy that that comes through and that that's what you experience, because that is what I am on earth to do. I
Yeah.
feel that strongly in my bones. It's just to help people see that they can be so much more than they know that they can be, right? As a coach, as a trainer, as a consultant, I'm not really telling a lot of people, like, here, this is exactly what you ought to do. I mean, sometimes a little bit, but more, it's like, what do you want to do and why? And oh, yeah, you can totally do that. Like, let's pick the bigger option. What happens if it goes well, right? We just spend so much time asking ourselves, what if it goes wrong? What if it goes wrong? And just trying to, as if we could possibly prepare ourselves for any potential eventuality by allowing our conscious mind to just like spin and go through every possible negative thing that could possibly happen and make sure that we're pre-prepared, right? And we think we're being so smart when we do that. And all we're doing is just burning time and energy when we do
Do
that.
you feel like that your relationship with faith, like trusting the universe, trusting providence, like I'm just curious because it seems like you have that
Yeah.
and you have a lot of that. I'm curious if you'd
It's so
speak to that.
yeah, I'm glad you asked. I've become so much more comfortable talking about this lately. I'm a deeply religious person, and a lot of people don't know that about me, and I think that's because I live in on the East Coast outside of Washington DC in a very liberal place. It's not necessarily cool to be super religious. I'm also a politically liberal person. And run in circles where religion isn't necessarily considered cool, or if it is, it's kind of private and it's not something that you talk about, lest you be seen as trying to proselytize or recruit other people into your religion. I operate also like you do with a lot of traumatized people who have religious trauma, etc. And so I'm very careful not to. ever come off as if I am trying to get anyone else to to believe what I believe. But I do have a deep religious faith. So I am a Reformed Jew. And what's funny, Pamini, is so many Jews that I know are just completely atheist, right? It's like the Jewish atheist is a very common archetype, especially in Reform. But I came from a religious background. I grew up in the Bible Belt, like God and Jesus and everybody else was constantly spoken about. I went in a Jewish direction from that, but faith was always in my life. I was always surrounded by concepts of faith from the very beginning. And I have come to a faith and an understanding that is kind of deterministic. That's like, hey, we have a path, like we have a purpose, and I'm walking my path. I feel when I'm on it and I feel when I'm off of it, right? That's the alignment we're talking about, right? If I feel like I'm swimming upstream, it's probably because I've wandered a little bit from the path. When I'm on the path, it's going to feel like that downstream floating, right? And so I know that there's stuff that I'm supposed to do. I don't know if I chose it and then I chose to come into this body and do it. I don't know if God chose it. I don't know, but I know that there's something that I'm supposed to be doing. And I have faith that I'm on that path. And I have faith endemic in that there are things and people and circumstances that are for me, and there's nothing I can do to lose them. And there are things and people and circumstances that are not for me, and there is nothing I can do to keep them.
Right.
And so the practice is allowing, receiving, accepting, right? You know that I spent the first several decades of my life driving and pushing and striving and climbing, and all of those are good things. It worked out really well for me. And there has to be harmony in that, right? And so these last, especially 5 years, have been about learning how to do the opposite, bring that into balance, bring that into harmony, learn how to allow, learn how to receive, learn how to listen. For me, that looked like learning how to be bored and lonely,
Yeah.
actually. Yeah. I struggled with that. You know, when we study, I know you do this work and you please dive deep into this. Like I'm gonna give the basic version and then you take it into the professional direction for me. But when we first talk about, oh, we need to learn how to sit with our feelings, we think about feelings like anger or
Right.
grief. We go, okay, I'm going to sit with my anger. I'm going to allow my anger. Okay, I'm angry and that's okay. Or I'm going to allow my grief. I'm going to let myself cry. I'm safe. I can let it out, right? And that's kind of what we think about. We don't always go straight to, can I let myself be bored?
Right.
Can I let myself be lonely? And like what comes up for me when I allow that is often inspiration,
Yeah. Right.
right? It's like I had to stop for long enough to allow something new to come in. Because if I'm just running around constantly, workaholism, trying not to be bored, or worse, like, partying, drinking, smoking, do whatever, just can't be bored. None of that inspiration is going to have a chance. I mean, there's a space for it.
Yeah, I want to draw the line between that and trust and faith because I think that what we're talking about is healing, right? And the capacities that we grow as we heal our trauma, right, is that we can let more goodness closer and we can receive more goodness into our lives, right? And we can, because at least my experience is that there feels like there's more collaboration with uh, spirit, with the world, the universe, whatever you want to call it. I don't have a particular name that I call it, but it feels like more collaborative. So when I think about like getting that book deal, for example, it felt like a collaboration. Like I was showing up, I was doing my part, definitely. And I wasn't pushing. I was just like working with this thing that was moving through me. I didn't know I was going to quit my company and write a book, but that's like what was in front of me. It's what I followed, the impulse I followed, and following that impulse allowed me to trust it more, right? To be like, oh my gosh, there's this book coming out. And then, the book deal happened. And I think that like we overlook when we talk about healing and you're like, oh yeah, well, now I can sit with my grief and my anger and my boredom. But like there's the next level of like, I can also sit with my faith and my trust that I'm going to be cared for, that like, and I don't know what that's going to look like. And I don't need to be the driving force behind that. Like I can trust that if I participate, if I do, my part, if I show up and do what feels right to me on purpose, right, that there is going to be reciprocity, that I will be met. And like as I relax into that, that's my experience, that my world is becoming sweeter.
Oh, it's this source of peace and joy and
Yeah.
understanding. It's wonderful. I think, and I'm just kind of extrapolating this from a lot of the clients that I work with. highly intelligent, highly intellectual, high performing people so often will struggle with this
Yeah.
trust and faith because they have created this trauma responsive hyper independence, right? If you've had success in your life, using your brain and, oh yeah, as long as I studied in school, I got A's, and as long as I prepped for that job interview, I got that job I wanted. And if you've had that kind of a life, then what that does is it tells you, oh, I can always think my way out of everything. I can logic my way out of everything. I can use my conscious mind. And even if I have to ruminate or spin or get really neurotic, I will figure out the solution. And I am always the source of the solution. And that's exhausting, especially when you hit that wall where it doesn't work this one time.
Yeah, and it's a direct result of capitalism, right?
Mm. Say more.
I mean,
Now the good stuff at the end of the show. Yeah, go.
so I'll just tell you a little bit about a conversation I was having with my partner recently. So we were talking about he wanted to make some money, more money, and I was like, cool, like let's think about how we could do that. And he, through a series of conversations, decided on his own, without consult with me, the only way he could make more money would be to work more hours. That
Mm.
was the only way. And and I was like, you know, I don't believe that. Like my sense of like how we could get more money does not necessarily go directly to we have to work more hours.
Right.
And he said, well, I couldn't think of any other way. And I was like, wow, so you couldn't think of it, so therefore it's not possible. Right, and that is
Burn,
the
yeah.
essence of hyper individualism, and where capitalism like wraps us in that lie, right? That's a
Mhm.
lie. Because like
Mhm.
I'm like, hey, I'm here to help you make more money. Like I could, have a lemonade stand to help you make more money. There was, I mean, just I'm teasing, but like there were many other options. But like that hyper individualism, it just keeps us like, I think it is one of the things that keeps us from exploring big dreams or for having more risk tolerances. Like I have to do it. That
Mhm.
bootstrapping mentality is not helpful. It's not helpful, right? Like everything good and big that I have done in my life, there have been other people involved with me who
Yeah.
are like supporting and helping and ideating and critiquing and feedbacking, and like it's a joint effort. And yeah, I think healing looks like trusting and a welcoming support.
Well, and I will state for the record that I can do it all myself and should do it all myself is not even the best way to do capitalism, in my opinion. So, capitalism or not, right? We're going to do better when we do things together. We're
Yeah.
also going to do better when we are in a space of creative energy versus a space of grinding energy, right? I know there's a lot of, and I've been this person too, like rise and grind, like there's something to it. To your point, you had to show up, you had to actually write the words on the page. It was a collaborative effort, but there's also something to allowing and saying, "Hey, how am I of best use today, and what do I want to create?" I think it's so interesting with the advent of AI and everything coming in. It's like I think you're going to start to see a bigger premium on creative, right? Because now, okay, we've got the tools to execute basically whatever we want to do, and this is only getting faster and more powerful, whatever. So who's going to rise to the top? And I know that, sorry, I know that's a capitalist framework, but let me state it differently. The folks who are going to thrive in the new system are the folks who are creative and who are looking at that and going, how can I leverage that to bring my inspiration to life, my dream to life? I mean, just like it's always been, but now at warp speed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you are now a professional creative
True.
and an author and a poet and all those super cool things. We've got like 1 minute. So just for anybody listening who has a big dream, but they've had some people telling them it's silly or they shouldn't do it or they should play it safe or they've got that internal voice saying that. What's your best
My
advice?
best tip,
Yeah. Pro tip.
there's two things. So the first one is manage other people's expectations by telling them, I'm going to do an experiment, right? So then it's like less high stakes and they can just like stop freaking out, right? And like and then you buy yourself some time to like to try it on and see if you actually like it. And I think because so often, as we spoke about, right, the external voices is actually just like reflecting the internal voice of like, oh, I don't know if I should do this or not. have one person who can reflect back to you, this is a good idea. You should do this. The world needs this. I've got you. You know, in my case, I had you, I had my partner, I had other people in my life. But if you just have like one person who's got you on your side, so on the days when that critical voice comes in, either externally or internally, they've got you. I'm sorry, there's a third one too.
Go, please.
Which came from you, which is so my son is building his business right now, and I've gotten to be in the role of Michelle for him, which is really sweet. And do 3 things every day for your business, whether you feel like it or not. Do 3 things every day, small things, so that you can accomplish. So that you're not like looking at the massive, like, oh my gosh, how's my dream going to manifest? You know, do 3 things every day for your dream. Write them down in the morning. So those are my 3 tips, my 3 hot takes.
I love all the very good tips, especially that last one that came from Note. Love it.
It's so brilliant. Wish I had thought of that. Oh, I did.
Dr. Pavini Moray, thank you so much for being on the show. Where can people find you if they want to access your work, learn more about you?
Website, pavinimoray.com, Substack, pavinimoray.com, Pavini Moray, Substack.com, Pavini Moray. Yeah, I have a Substack called Glitter Joyride, all things about being human and having fun.
And we will have all of that in the show notes for you. And if you're loving the Delusional podcast, please like, subscribe, leave us comments, leave us reviews. I promise I read every single one. I will be responding to you personally. And if you want to follow me at Michelle to Scale or at the Delusional Pod, we would love to start to get this message out to as many people as possible. So we appreciate your help. Pavini, thank you so much for being here. It's been awesome having you on the show. And everybody else, we'll see you next time.